On a quiet afternoon, a starving stray mastiff steps into the woods, following a faint baby's cry, and what happens next will shock you. Why would a pack of wolves and shadowy strangers stop at nothing to snatch them both? On a still afternoon, the forest lay quiet and dim, the last golden rays filtering through towering pines and lacing the mossy carpet with shifting patterns of light and shadow. And in that hush of late day, Hunter, a scarred mastiff whose amber eyes held a weary wisdom beyond his years, stumbled through the underbrush, each trembling step betraying the ache of hunger and the burden of solitude that clung to his matted coat and visible ribs. His world until that moment had been nothing but the sharp tang of desperation and the echo of distant howls, for he had known neither love nor kindness, only the relentless struggle to find his next meal. Yet, as he pressed forward on legs grown awkward with weakness, a distant, trembling cry pierced the stillness like a thread of hope winding through his battered heart, and he paused, nostrils flaring, as he searched the air for the source of this strange human sound, drawn onward by an instinct older than fear, older even than his own pain, until he came upon a clearing dominated by the ancient roots of a great oak, whose branches reached skyward, as if in silent prayer. Cradled in a torn blanket that lay draped across knotted roots was a tiny baby, whose soft cheeks were stained with tears, and whose faint sobs resonated with a vulnerability Hunter had never before encountered. And though his hunger clamored within him like a storm, something deeper, an unexpected spark of compassion, or perhaps a memory buried in the recesses of his canine soul, urged him forward. He lowered himself with surprising gentleness beside the child, folding his large trembling frame around her, in a shield of fur and warmth. And in that moment, as the last beams of sunlight gilded the baby's wispy curls and reflected in Hunter's softening eyes, the gaunt, battle-hardened dog discovered an unexpected purpose. He would keep this helpless life safe, no matter the cost, even if it meant sacrificing his own survival. In the hush of that twilight, with the forest's breath held in anticipation, Hunter pressed his muzzle against the blanket, offering the faintest heartbeat of comfort to the tiny stranger whose world was now entwined with his. And as darkness pooled around them, the roughened scent of pine needles mingled with the sweet innocence of infancy, forging a bond woven from fear and hope. For in every labored breath of the child, Hunter heard a promise of trust, and in every protective shift of his own wounded body, he felt the first stirrings of devotion. Eyes watched from the shadowy ring of trees, silent wolves with yellowed fangs, and a hunger as fierce as his own. But Hunter's resolve burned brighter than their coming threat, for he knew that here, beneath the ancient oak, whose roots clasped the very earth, he had found a reason to fight beyond himself, a reason to endure beyond hunger and loneliness. And as the first stars pierced the velvet canopy overhead, the mastiff pressed closer, his ribs rising and falling in rhythm with the baby's gentle sighs, vowing through every throb of pain in his wounded paws that no darkness, no predator, no force of cruelty would ever steal this fragile life from his vigilant guard. And though neither dog nor infant could understand the enormity of the night ahead, they shared an unspoken pledge in that sacred clearing, bound by need, by compassion, and by the unbreakable promise that love, even in its simplest form, was the most powerful force in the world. Night fell cold and merciless, and as darkness swallowed the forest floor in an oppressive silence, broken only by the baby's soft whimpers, a circle of glowing yellow eyes emerged from the pines. A pack of wolves, drawn by the faint scent of helpless life. Hunter, his battered body tensed and every muscle coiled, rose from his weary crouch, with a low, throaty growl resonating through the trees. He could feel the weight of fear in his trembling limbs, Yet beneath that fear lay a fierce devotion that refused to let him abandon this fragile bundle cradled against his side. One by one the wolves slunk forward, their jaws snapping in the gloom, claws flashing like curved blades in the scant moonlight. Hunter braced himself, wounded ribs aching with each breath, as he met the first lunge with a savage force that belied his own suffering, raking claws across his flank to drag the attacker down. He threw himself into the fight with a desperation born of love. For every wolf he drove back, another circled to strike, but he pressed on, using his broad shoulders and powerful forelegs to shield the child's blanketed form. The baby's cries wove through the clash of snarls like a prayer, compelling Hunter to stand firm, even as pain blossomed in fresh cuts and every muscle trembled. When it seemed that Hunter could fight no more, bloodied and on the verge of collapse, a sharp crack split the air, and a human ranger burst through the shadows, rifle raised and voice command. The report echoed among the trees, scattering the pack in a swirl of teeth and fur, and Hunter, bleeding, panting, yet unbroken, held his ground until every glowing eye melted back into the night. Staggering beneath the weight of relief and exhaustion, he guided the trembling child through the forest to a distant cabin, where the ranger's gentle touch and the warmth of a crackling fire offered a brief sanctuary. Inside the crumbling shelter, the dog collapsed upon a bed of straw, chest heaving with effort, as a stranger's hands inspected each wound and murmured soft words that eased the tremors of fear in both their hearts. Yet even as embers glowed in the heart, the distant howl of wolves reminded them that the forest's dangers never truly slept, and Hunter, despite his pain and weariness, pressed close to the child. Thou whispered in every ragged breath, no threat, no shadow of cruelty, would ever separate them again. As the warmth of the fire washed over Hunter's aching bones, his thoughts drifted through the haze of pain to memories of a life before abandonment, before hunger had become his only companion. He remembered distant echoes of distant hands that had once offered kindness and scraps of food, faces blurred by time, but feelings of safety as vivid as the glow of the embers. Now, as the baby nestled against his side, her small hand curling around a coarse strand of his fur, Hunter felt the weight of his past lift, replaced by a fierce resolve to forge a new beginning beneath this fragile roof. Outside, the forest pressed in, its walls of bristling pine and heaving roots alive with unseen watchers, and each snap of a branch or rustle of leaves reminded Hunter that safety was only a fragile dream, easily shattered by the night's predators, or the greed of those who sought to use the child for their own dark purposes. He glanced toward the ranger, whose weathered face was etched with concern, and knew that the human stood between hope and despair for them both, a fragile bridge held up by steady hands and unwavering courage. The ranger's soft voice drifted through the smoky air, words both soothing and urgent, as he spoke of returning the baby to her family, of sanctuary beyond the tree line, where kind strangers and healing hands awaited. Yet Hunter's amber gaze remained fixed on the cabin's single window, where the cold night pressed its grasp like fingers against the glass, and inside his heart thundered a promise that no matter what trials lay beyond this wooden threshold, he would stand guard until the dawn and beyond, driven by a love he had never known he could fear. As the first stars began to fade in the eastern sky, replaced by the pale glow of a rising moon, Hunter braced himself against the straw with every ounce of strength left in his battered frame, determined to remain the child's sentinel until the break of day, for in that moment beneath the watchful sky, he understood that true family was not born of blood, but of shared courage, sacrifice, and the unwavering choice to never let go. Far off, a distant horn blew, an early warning from a neighboring camp that the night's dangers had not yet loosened their grip. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of smoke and pine resin, and Hunter lifted his muzzle, tasting hope on the night air. He thought of the child's fragile breath, steady now as sleep claimed her, and pressed a gentle paw against her blanket, as if promising to bear her weight, no matter how heavy the world might become. In the quiet between the crackle of flames and the whisper of the trees, Hunter caught the ranger's low murmur, a prayer or a blessing, that offered solace in a way words alone could not. Outside, the forest seemed to exhale, releasing the ghosts of its own darkness, and beneath the watchful eye of a cat-eyed moon, Hunter closed his own tears, rough as they were,
feeling a peace deeper than any he had known before. And when the first tendrils of dawn painted the sky in pale pinks and golds, he would still be here, a lone sentinel at the threshold of safety, guarding the bond that had sprang from fear, shaping it into something stronger than any threat, a promise of tomorrow woven in fur, and whispered in each heartbeat shared between a lost dog and the child he had pledged to protect. In that silent vigil, beneath the sheltering oak's unseen shadow beyond these walls, Hunter understood at last that love could transform even the darkest night into a pathway toward light, ever loyal.
As the first pale light of morning spilled through the cracked window of the ruined cabin, painting the splintered walls with soft gold, Hunter stirred on the straw-strewn floor, each breath a testament to the fierce battle he had waged through the night to keep the tiny life pressed against his side safe. His muscles ached with a deep, relentless pain, and his ribs, mended only by iron will, rose and fell in a rhythm of exhaustion and triumph. For though the wolves that had circled like shadows beneath the trees had been driven off by his savage devotion, new threats emerged with the dawn's clarity, their forms slinking through the brush beyond the cabin's trembling walls. First, another pack of starving wolves drawn by the lingering scent of fear and innocence, their yellow eyes flicking with hunger and malice. Then, as Hunter forced himself to his paws and pressed closer to the baby swaddled in the ranger's blanket, a band of armed strangers appeared at the edge of the clearing, rifles leveled and faces obscured beneath cold visors, their silence louder than any growl. Without hesitation, as if fueled by a force greater than thought, Hunter charged into the fray once more, teeth bared and claws slashing through the morning mist. Each strike was a promise, each feint a vow that no predator, be it beast or man, could ever claim the precious life entrusted to him. He fought with the raw strength of desperation, meeting gun barrels with fearless defiance, circling between the infant's cradle and the assaulting wolves, his scarred hide taking bullet grazes and fang wounds without faltering, for his devotion blazed brighter than the pain, coursing through every wound. The strangers fired into the sky, more intent on intimidation than injury, and the wolves, startled by the sudden thunder, yelped and retreated into the forest's embrace. At last, as Hunter stood trembling on paws slick with blood and sweat, the distant echo of human voices drifted through the trees, search and rescue making their way toward the cabin, guided by the plume of smoke rising from the rickety chimney. A team of uniformed rescuers emerged in a swirl of intimacy and compassion, their gentle hands reaching for the baby first, as though drawn by an invisible bond to the child's fragile heartbeat. The ranger, his face lined with relief, scooped the infant into his arms and pressed a cloth to Hunter's side, murmuring words of gratitude, as a medic knelt beside the dog, cleaning each wound with tender care. Though his body trembled and his breathing came in ragged bursts, Hunter lifted his head, amber eyes shining with quiet pride, as if he alone had earned the right to lay claim to the child's safety. The rescuers wrapped the baby in warm blankets, their voices soft and full of promise, speaking of home, of family waiting beyond the forest's rim, and as they prepared to move out, one of them knelt and offered Hunter a gentle pat on his broad shoulder, a gesture that carried the weight of unspoken thanks and recognition of the loyalty that had saved a life. The forest, now bathed in the gentle glow of sunrise, seemed to exhale its looming dangers, momentarily stilled by the triumph of love and courage. Hunter rose, wincing as fresh agony shot through his side, but his gaze never wavered from the baby leaning against the ranger's chest, eyes fluttering shut in a dreamless sleep. In that instant, beneath the canopy of towering pines and the watchful eye of the morning sky, Hunter understood that his life had forever changed. No longer was he a stray driven solely by hunger and fear, but a guardian bound by a purpose stronger than any pack or predator. As the rescue team formed a quiet procession towards safety, Hunter fell into step, each unsteady paw finding solid ground, and though the road ahead would be paved with healing and uncertainty, he would follow it without hesitation. For in the soft coo of the child and the gentle touch of strangers now turned allies, he had found the home he had fought so fiercely to create, one built not of wooden walls or whispered promises,
but of unwavering devotion, sacrifice, and the enduring bond between a once feral mastiff and the life he had sworn to protect.